So I have several questions that I'm going to I'm going to start with one for Dr. Samuel. You make such a fantastic point that students don't know what they don't know. What is your advice on how to work with students who are looking so hard for somewhere they feel like they fit in, but aren't even sure how to assess fit, whether it be an academic or career setting?
So I have to say that I'm in the habit of giving these little assessments that students might answer. It's something that I used in a different program. I'm not even quite sure if it should be updated. It probably should. And I have them just complete it and think about it. But of course, my go-to is always sending them to the Career Center because, as Jeremy noted, sometimes recommendations coming from faculty isn't well used, right? Or it might not be the best recommendations because, again, we are not equipped as the Career Center is to provide that kind of information. But again, generally, I typically use, and I'm happy, by the way, to send it to Nancy, and Nancy can send it out, but it is something that really determines what students might be good for, or what they might think of, depending on their critical thinking skills, the kinds of things that they enjoy, the ways in which they spend most of their time, what do they consider hobbies, and this puts them in, it gives them a snapshot of the possibilities. Now, sometimes I can't say that they always work, because the one person who wants to be a musician is then told they're really, that the most relevant profession for them is that of being a firefighter, right? And that's not what they want to do. So it's really thinking about this sort of thing and understanding that this might not work for everybody, because they sometimes come in with some idea of what they want to do. They are just trying to figure out how to go about doing it, how to become that person or have that profession. I hope that's helpful.
Yep, great. Thanks so much, Vida. We get that question all the time in the Center for Career Development. And, one thing that we think that students really need to understand is that it's a process. You're not going to take an assessment and walk away and know that you're going to be a musician or a firefighter. So that's really important to share with the student, because sometimes they come in to, talk to a faculty member or to a Career Center staff member, and their expectations are they're going to come in and they're going to have all the answers. And we all know that isn't the case. And it's part of that education of students that we're involved in. So thank you so much. Jeremy, why is faculty advice about career development more often not good advice? And how can we do better?
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, it is one of the things. It is interesting that it is widely given, but also on the scale of all of the parties on campus that were mentioned, for those that provide career advice, it was the least helpful. Doesn't mean that it's holistically unhelpful, and when it is helpful, it's really good. But the why, I don't know. Perhaps it's simply a professional development question of like, how do we ensure that faculty have the tools and tips they need to provide that. I think faculty do a great job of referring, and that's needed and needs to continue. But I'm not sure of the why related to that. I do think that when there's a deeper intentionality and engagement, when faculty are coming together to wrestle together on, okay, what are the latest trends? What are the advice that's needed? That a lot of magic happens there. I'll say this: I don't believe that faculty should become career counselors. That's not their role. I think they should just have a few tools that help make their life easier and provide relief as they're going about conversations with students.
Great, thanks so much, Jeremy. And I think one of the ways that faculty can put tools in their toolbox is by becoming a career champion. That's really what our Career Champion program is to provide some common tools and language so you can help out students and then understand how to refer them. So thanks so much, Jeremy. Dr. Samuel, I'd love to hear your take on this paradigm shift that Jeremy pointed out and how other faculty and staff at UConn can embody it in their own work.
I will say that and again, because I'm such a fan, I'm a girl fan of the Center for Career Development, and I've gotten to know my colleagues so well. I can say that it's just, for me, it's really seamless including them in my class. So when I first started at UConn, one of the things I did was brought at the end of the semester, each of my classes ended with a conversation with when I brought one of the diversity teams from Indeed, which consisted of about 6 young people, 3 of whom were UConn alums. One of them was one of my ex-students, who would come to talk to students on the last day of class. In every one of my classes, from the 1000 level class where students hadn't even thought about what they were going to do that summer, and didn't know what they were going to be doing, hadn't attended a career fair, didn't even know there was one. If they did, they thought it was for someone else, it was for seniors. So I've been just bringing in folks to talk to my students, just about the possibilities. What are you planning to do? What is it that you want to do? And people, of course, who have that expertise that I don't. The good news is that I also depend on the Career Center to do that, because everyone that I've interacted with always is so generous in providing their time. And by the way, I also want to say that I make use of a lot of the resources at UConn, in that I bring the librarians into my class to teach my students how to search, right? How to do research and Boolean searches, and how to manage Boolean phrases, to even understand these things. Because while I know that I'm good at it, I am not the professional at it. So really, this is about using all the sources that are available to us on camp in the UConn community, for which we have no expertise. So it's relying on the Center for Career Development, relying on maybe outside sources that you think can complement or supplement what the Center for Career Development does. I will say also, one of the things that I do is that when I select to sit on a board, my requirement is it has to benefit my students in some way. So it has to be able to either give them internships, volunteering opportunities, or scholarships. If not, they can't have my time. By the way, I also wanted to just add to what Jeremy said earlier, that he didn't think professors, educators really should be, they're not career experts. And I agree with that, and I'll tell you why. During my doctoral study days, I was very specific that I did not want to become an educator in this sense. But when you go into a doctoral program, most likely you're being educated to go after a tenure track position, right? So many of which don't exist, or you're encouraged to do more research. Sometimes that's not what we want to do, but it's what we're taught. We're told this is the end goal, right? That was not my end goal. I wanted to do so many other things, but teach, at least teach full time. I wanted to teach, but there are other plans that I had for my life. It worked out that I really do enjoy teaching, so I'm here.
And we won't forget about that crossing guard, Vida. Jeremy, as we think about the possibility of embedding career reflection into coursework, and knowing that not all students go on to pursue a career related to their major, how can we help students also understand that the classroom experience and skills are not linear and applicable to all career choices?
Yeah, the answer is in the question. That is well said. It's a terrific question, and it's something that I think is important. So here's what the data says on the first job: 30% have that first job for 5 years. 30% have 2 to 3 jobs for 5 years. 35% have 4 to 10 jobs in the first 5 years. So we cannot look at almost any student and say, it's all geared toward that one pursuit, whether that's a first job or whether that's a career field or whatever. I think one of the ways that really helps that is to put aspiration in the hands of the student, and then to build reflective questions based on what their aspirations are. So how might, as we reflect on understanding historical underpinnings inside of this history class, how might that help you in your future pursuits, right? So allow the aspiration to be in the hands of the student, and use your content expertise to build in generalized career reflection questions as they think about their future. And I'll tell you this, just ask them what they're thinking about their pursuits. That kindness from a faculty member who they truly respect is incredible. Simply say, hey, write a little bit about what you're thinking about your future. I care about your future. That's all. You don't even have to have answers beyond that. And it's a beautiful thing for students.
I think that's a great suggestion, Jeremy. And I think sometimes as we are working with students, we make it more complicated than it needs to be. And we need to kind of go back to the basics and ask students those types of questions. So this is a longer question for both of you. Students may be bogged down with familial, employment, and just life responsibilities. If they are employed, they may be faced with the challenge of giving up work hours and pay to get internships or be engaged in research. How can we better communicate the values of these experiences if they may face financial hardship? Economic privilege may make some students more able to have the possibility of taking advantage of unpaid internships or research experiences.
No doubt. There is a clear equity issue going on across the country when it comes to this topic. And it bleeds into another question from before in the chat feed about unpaid internships as well. And I think we have to be mindful of the financial situations that students are in. I think this is the reason where there's a lot of lobbying right now around trying to eliminate unpaid internships. However, the pay still may not be enough for students to give up as a single mother their full-time gig in order to do an internship that's required. So I love that a lot of campuses are coming together to provide internship scholarships for this reason. But it makes students double down on grit and persistence if they're having to give up finances that are extremely needed in order to pursue their future. And so any way that we can bring our heads together to innovate around this topic of equity in experiential learning pursuits, I think will go so far. But we have to consider it on the table. It's easy for a lot of students. They're just like, I'm going to get my dream internship. It's going to set me up for my future. They have nothing else to consider. Not the case for all students. And the ones that we need to be focusing on are the ones that are incredibly challenged. It might affect their ability to persist at the university. It might affect quite a number of other variables in their grades and their classwork if they're having to give up those finances. It might affect their family. Some of them are taking care of generations as they're going to school. So it's an incredible question, and one that I hope that our heart gets bigger around.
Thanks, Jeremy. Dr. Samuel?
Well, I have a similar perspective as Jeremy's, and I have to say, this has been probably one of the most difficult questions to answer. Beyond, of course, I mean, as faculty, we cannot do everything personally or take everything personally, which is why I believe in using our resources. One of the recommendations that I made on a board on which I sit right now is related exactly to that. It's that, yes, great, we can get students internships, and I'd love for my students to apply, but will those be paid internships? And it turns out right now what they were doing started with the inaugural internship last year, is that they are paying, if the company does not pay if it's not a paid internship, the organization on which I'm on the board actually provides a stipend to the student so that they're not losing anything. But, I don't know how many organizations do that. I don't know how many internships are doing that. And usually the best I can do is really just align them with or put them in touch with organizations I know that do that outside of our campus community, right? And by the way, let me just put a plug for Handshake. Students can actually filter out these internships based on paid or unpaid, right? So I always encourage them to do what's important to them first.
Thank you so much, Vida. Through the Center for Career Development, we've been able to start a small internship opportunity fund, in particular this year for first generation students. So we're funding about 10 or 12 underpaid internships. So we're hoping to continue that, annually, in particular for summer internships. We are just about out of time. There are several more questions, which we will provide responses to in a follow-up. But again, I want to thank Jeremy and Vida for your time this morning, your great presentations and insightful comments, as well as your willingness to participate in this Q&A. So thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.